of course, appreciate the invitation to practice with you all and visit with you all. As Jeff said, I've known him for at least 30 years. And in part because I feel a connection to Jeff, and also just because of the convenience of Empty Gate Zen Center to the Zen Center in Seattle. In my early days, I used to fly from Seattle down to the Oakland airport and then go to Empty Gate for Yongmen Zhongjin when Empty Gate was at the Arch Street location. And I remember two things about practicing at Arch Street. I remember the hot tub in the backyard, which was a great gift on the afternoon break before dinner when my muscles were really sore. And I also remember the funny way that we did walking meditation, kind of around and into another room and around. Like, it just seemed odd to me at that time. I was used to going in straight rectangles, and here was something that kind of wove around two different rooms. The other thing I remember about Arch Street quite distinctly is it's at the Arch Street location that I gave my very first Dharma talk. At the invitation of Zen Master Jibong, who was the guiding teacher at that time, I believe. And fortunately, I don't remember anything about what I said during that talk, but I do still feel the embarrassment of my talk that came with my talk. And I'm quite certain that whatever I said was very foolish, and hence the embarrassment. And I felt totally ill-equipped for speaking in front of a group of people. Those feelings have lessened a little over the years, but they've never really quite gone away as I give talks. There's always this, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into kind of quality to it. Over the years, after Empty Gate moved out of Arch Street, I visited the center one time when it was located, I think, just over the border into Oakland. I don't remember the location, but I do remember having an interview with Jeff, and what my memory says was a closet, basically. Is that right? Yeah, a closet. And then, of course, in more recent years, I visited the current really incredible Dharma home that you have. It's not really the buildings that have kept me going back to Empty Gate over the years, though. It's a quality in the center that I believe, I don't want to embarrass Jeff here, it's not my intention, but it actually arises from the presence of Jeff and the Dharma energy he brings to the center. I felt that in the years before he became a teacher, when I first got to know him, and it still remains very clear to me today. It manifests, I think, most clearly on these Wednesday nights. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that Jeff has shown up for these Wednesday night talks most every Wednesday night for 30 years. And that's just astonishing, that kind of dedication. Of course, it's an incredible gift to the community, and not only of his very clear teaching, but also of in providing a model for what the practice life asks of us. What it means to show dedication and consistency and curiosity and also love to the Sangha. We can only do that by showing up over and over and over again. It's really important that we don't ever underestimate or dismiss this kind of dedication, that we actually acknowledge it and celebrate it, because in a way that's maybe the most important part of our practice. We find this kind of dedication in the really great teachers of every lineage. Many of you have heard of, and some of you maybe have studied with, teachers in the lineage of Suzuki Roshi, who founded San Francisco Zen Center. He's the root teacher, of course, of the many different branches of that tradition. The story is, when he was a young boy, he entered a monastery in Japan, and there were about 9 other young boys, very young, who entered the monastery to become monastics. And over the years, actually beginning in the very first year, and over the years, all the boys left the monastery. Only Suzuki Roshi stayed. And in those years, when it was only Suzuki Roshi and his teacher, I think his teacher was So-on, if I remember rightly, the teacher referred to Suzuki Roshi as a crooked cucumber. And later, Suzuki himself understood, he said that he understood even at that time that he wasn't actually very sharp or adept at Zen training or at anything really. But what he said about himself was that he was the last person, the only person to stay. And he said all the good cucumbers ran away. Only the crooked cucumber did not run away. He said, I was not smart enough to run away, so I was caught by the Dharma. So I think that's really a wonderful image, being caught by the Dharma. It creates a sense of being tethered to the Bodhisattva path. And that's our way, is to find in ourselves what it really means to be united with the Dharma and committed fully to Dharma practice. One of the interesting things is that this kind of commitment doesn't require cleverness or intelligence or anything like that, actually. All it requires is that we show up every day. Every one of us today got out of bed. We do that every day. We show up every day. We get out of bed. So if we can do that, we can also do our practice every day. We can come to the Zen Center when the Zen Center is open for practice. This kind of dedication is certainly present in the Quantum School. It begins with our founding teachers in Master Sung San, who also provided a model for he used to say, try 10,000 years nonstop. But really and that's wonderful and clear, I think, but it's really a model for the great vow of helping this world. He left Korea in 1972 to come to America, where he did not speak the language, had no understanding of the culture, and all he did was to try. And he tried really nonstop. And as a result, today, 50 years later, we have this incredible community. We have the Quantum School. 30 years ago, right about now, well, maybe earlier, I went to sit a week of Kyolche, which was the first time I'd ever attempted anything like that. I went to Diamond Hill Zen Monastery at Providence Zen Center, and it was a very small retreat. I think there were 5 or 6 of us in the Dharma room, and I had no idea what I had gotten myself into. But what I do remember, one of the things that really stuck in my memory is on Thursday of that week, there was a Dharma talk, and the teacher for the retreat was then Jacob Pearl JDPSN, and then later Zen Master Wu Bong, who passed away 10 years ago. He was the teacher, and there was a Dharma talk, and during the question time, someone asked him, "Sir, what is the most important thing in practice?" And I was a very new student at that time. I had been practicing in the Quantum School for maybe a year or 2, I don't remember. But I thought he was going to say something, my mind very quick, I thought, oh, he's going to say something like getting enlightenment is the most important thing in practice, or saving all beings from suffering is the most important thing in practice, or something kind of grand like that. But that's not how he answered. Instead, he said, just try. Trying is the most important part of practice. And that's really stayed with me for over the years. Just try. We try when we're sitting on the cushion and our mind is wandering. We try when our emotions are pulling us left and right. We try in the interview room when we feel humiliated, when we get angry, when we get frustrated, when we start wanting to run away. We just try. The nature of this trying, of course, I think quite naturally varies for each one of us, depending on our own situation and condition. And the nature of the trying also changes over time for us. When I was you might say, young Zen practitioner in my 40s, I could do several sets of prostrations with no problem. And During sitting, when it was time for walking meditation, the Chugpi would clap and I would just pop up, ready to walk. A little arrogant now, looks to me from hindsight, but that was just how I was. I had a really fit body and I was ready to practice. But now I'm 76 years old, and the forms of practice, the forms of trying for me have become quite different. I can't bow at all. My walking is very unsteady. I would actually do everything I could do to avoid walking meditation these days. My practice these days is chanting practice. I do a lot of chanting practice. And I still sit on a cushion, but I don't pop up off the cushion anymore. It's actually very nice to have somebody lend a hand to have me get up off the floor. None of that matters. What matters is the showing up and doing it. Daisatsunim, well, actually, even before Daisatsunim, the Buddha talked about right effort as one of the elements of the Eightfold Path. We call it right trying or upright trying. Daisatsunim said that right trying just means when you're doing something, do it 100%. Really do it. He observed that it doesn't really matter if you're sick or healthy or you're busy or relaxed or any kind of condition you have or situation, just try. Daisatsunim was very clear about this. I think it's important. This trying actually in our school, our tradition, has a very important meaning. It refers to how we keep our mind moment to moment. That's true meditation, he said, and it's quite a radical view about meditation. Meditation is how you keep your mind moment to moment throughout your day, throughout your life. And of course, that mind is the mind that has made a vow to help this world. That's our human job, to perceive this world clearly and to help this world. We put our mind to this task of helping this world. And it's not so easy sometimes, right? It means we can't get attached to all the myriad things that appear in mind. Feelings, forms, impulses. Don't attach to that. It also means letting go of any hope that we might get something from our practice. Just let that go. We practice without wanting. Daisatsunim said, you don't want anything, then you get everything. But why would we do this practice if we didn't want anything? So we can direct our attention to that. I'm going to finish with a story about someone who tried. Comes out of the Chinese literature, and it involves Zen master Pai Chang. Many of you have been around for a while. You've heard of Pai Chang. He's a very famous Chinese master. He was elderly at this time this story takes place, and a friend of his comes to visit the temple. The friend is a geomancer, studies the energy in the landscape. And his friend says to him, "Sir, I have discovered on Mount Gui, I have discovered an incredible energy spot. If you build a temple on this energy spot on Mount Gui, many, many people will come, and the temple will help all of them." And Pai Chang starts getting ready. I'll go right up there and do it right now. And then the geomancer says, "Oh, sir, you're too old. This energy is very strong. It needs a young person's energy to build this temple. It would harm your body if you try to do this." So Pai Chang then decides to have a test to see who to send to build the temple. So he gathers all the monastics in a room, and in the front of the room, he gets a urine bottle. I'll say what that is in a minute, and puts the urine bottle on the floor. So a urine bottle is what the monks used in the middle of the night, because the outhouse, quite rightly, was quite a long ways away from the temple buildings. You didn't want that smell close to the temple buildings. So rather than getting up and walking into the woods in the middle of the night, they had these bottles that they would pee into, and then during the day they would empty them. But Pai Chang takes this urine bottle and puts it on the floor and says, You cannot call this a urine bottle. So what can you call it? And the head monk, being clever, he says, you cannot call it a wooden clog. And then the kitchen master, whose name was Ling Yu, he gets up and walks over and kicks over the urine bottle with his foot and then walks out. Pai Chang says, oh, the kitchen master has defeated the head monk. The kitchen master can go and build a temple. So that story is in our koan book, and Whole World is a Single Flower. Some of you have looked at it, I'm sure. But there's more to the story, and this is, to me, this is the interesting part of the story, for the purpose of this talk anyway. Pai Chang sends Ling Yu off to build the temple. Ling Yu packs his bags. He goes up. He finds the energy spot using the directions provided by the geomancer. He builds himself a little hut and sits down and waits for the monks to come. He's sitting in meditation. There's butterflies and birds and monkeys and, sounds like snakes or whatever you got in the jungle there. And he just practices. And a week goes by, no problem. He just keeps practicing. A month goes by. He keeps practicing. Nobody's coming. 6 months go by. Nobody comes. The first year goes by. He's still sitting by himself. Nobody has come. Ultimately, 9 years go by. He sits up in this hut practicing by himself for 9 years. Nobody comes. So then this thought appears in his mind. Maybe it's appeared actually quite earlier. He says, there must have been a mistake. So he packs his few possessions in a bag and sets off down the trail back to Pai Chang's place. And as he rounds a corner on the trail, he encounters a tiger. And he goes, ah! And runs back up to his hut, sits down. 2 days later, the first monks show up. More monks come over time, and then he becomes known as, his teaching name is Guishan. We, in our Korean pronunciation, we say Wisan. Guishan is considered the founder of one of the 5 houses of Chinese Zen. So he's very important in the Chinese Zen tradition. His primary student was Yangshan. They actually co-taught at the temple together. And there are many wonderful stories about them. His intuition that there was a mistake is correct. There was a mistake. And yet he managed to rectify the mistake by staying put. He didn't turn away. That's an incredible, for me, that's just an incredible and moving story about the kind of dedication that's required if we're really serious about helping this world. So when we dedicate our life to practice, when we say the 4 great vows in the morning or in the evening, our practice actually supports the entire universe. Because we're not separate from the universe. Our life matters. Our life shapes how this world develops over time. Everything we do counts. And when we do it together, of course, as a community, the effect is simply multiplied in incomprehensible ways. So I hope we continue to try together and practice hard together and save all beings. Thank you very much.